Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Julie with Paisleys and Polka Dots, and in this video I'm going to show you how to paint and assemble our country cabinet here. I used a distressed finishing for this, or distressed look for this cabinet, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You can also just make your life a little easier, and you can use spray paint and just spray paint the whole entire thing, or do like I'm doing. And I already went ahead and put on one coat of white paint to all of the pieces so that I would have a base coat. So if you want more techniques on the base coating techniques, there is another video for that. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I'm going to start with the background of this piece here. I'm using acrylic paints, and the colors I'm going to be using is I'm using regular white and oyster white, which is kind of like a light ivory. This color, it's called Burlap by Americana, and also raw umber. So let me give these all a good shake. We're going to use them kind of sparingly, I guess, maybe. Let's see. So for the background, this is going to go behind the lattice work here. So I kind of want it a little bit darker than all the rest of the pieces are going to be. So I think, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to blend all these colors together. So I am going to put out some paint onto a paper plate here. And I'm going to do just, well, I think I'm going to put out all three colors, because I want to blend these colors together as I'm putting them onto the background here. Okay, so I'm going to use a paintbrush about this size. You can use one even larger than that. Actually, let me grab this one. This one's a little bit bigger. I like to wet my brushes before I start, just to have all the bristles together, and then I wipe them off on a paper towel to make sure all the water is out of them. So I'm just going to dip into the white paint, and I make sure you go high enough that this piece here is the top, and I've already finished this piece because I was checking out the colors that I wanted to use. So this piece goes on the top. So when you paint the background, you're going to want your color to go above that line so that when we glue it down, it's going to cover that. So I'm just going to dip into the white, and I'm going to start painting, going sideways here. And as I dip into the paint, I can dip into some of the other color and just kind of blend that color in. Now I've already gone around the sides of my board, as you can see. I like to paint around the sides first and then paint the top. So, and then you can even dip into some of this color, so you can get all the different colors into your paint. If I want a little bit of some dark color, I can dip into a little bit of raw umber. Now, I probably don't want a lot of this color because I don't want to get it too dark, but as you can see, you can actually just blend some of this color in. And I'm just, blending back and forth with my brush, adding in different colors as I go. So you have kind of a blended look, kind of some shadowing behind those, so you have, behind the doors. Actually kind of like that raw umber back there, so I might blend in a little bit more of that and some of this color. And if you want to go over some of it, you can, like so. Even some of the light ivory color. As you can see, I'm just going back and forth. Make sure you get low enough that that base for there's another one. This one here is going to cover the bottom. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure you paint low enough that that's going to be covered as well. And one coat will be good enough, will work. Oh, I think I want some more of that dark brown. Just going to continue to blend all of these colors together. And as you can see, I do have quite a bit of paint on my brush, but I'm going to try, and you don't want it to go so high into your bristles that you get paint way up into the top up here. But I am using a generous amount of paint on my paintbrush, just to try and make it go pretty quick. So there you have this background of a board. I've got a little bit of a paint, dried piece of paint in there. Just go over that. I'll put a little bit more brown in there. So you just keep adding color until you kind of have what you like, what the look that you want. And like I said, you want it to be a little bit darker because, and make sure you wash your brush out really good when you get all done. I have this paint bucket here with ridges across the bottom, and it really gets my brushes clean for me. I can lay this over the top and make sure that it's going to be darker underneath. So it is, but we are going to work on this next. So I'm going to set this piece aside to dry, and then I'm going to show you how to work on this lattice here. Okay, so what I use for this is, these are called, I think they're called chippy brushes, chippy paint brushes. Get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, your local hardware store. They're just cheapy brushes. And sometimes they get a little too fluffy on the edge, like not enough bristles, or I get too much dried paint in them. So I take my scissors and chop them off at the ends if they get a little too wild and crazy for me to deal with. So this is what I use. And again, I already have some of the colors out here still, and I have the raw umber. I probably need a little bit more white. And what you're going to do, and like I said, I actually spray painted this one before I did all this, just because I didn't want to have to take the time to get in all the little nooks and crannies in here. But if you don't feel comfortable spray painting, you can always use a sponge. A lot of times I will use a sponge so that you're not getting paint, you know, all the crevices here that you don't want to get out. So just take a sponge, dip it into the paint, and then you can dab onto these little the chicken wire areas. And it's an easy technique to use to cover really quick and easy. So that you can do that too if you don't want to spray paint. But for this one, I'm just going to dip into some of the paint, and you're going to dab off. It's basically kind of dry brushing, and you're going to want to blend some color together and just kind of start with, and then start working on your piece so that you get different colors in there. And you want the wire to be darker, so you are going to want to use maybe a little bit more of that raw umber color. And you just keep pouncing up and down. Of course, cover your work surface with paper or something that's going to protect whatever surface, and you can toss it out afterwards. But you can just keep blending the color and pouncing it up and down on your chicken wire there, and kind of just blend in the colors. You can add in more or less as you see fit, you know, whatever you like. I always say you do you, whatever style you like, but it's kind of give a little bit of a marbled effect. Can you kind of see how that's taking on? And if you want other colors, if you want light colors put back in, you can add in some more light colors back in. But I want my chicken wire to be darker than all the rest of my cabinet. So I like to sponge in a little bit of some darker colors. And then we're going to sand this when it's all done. Now you don't have to worry, because your stitched pieces or whatever you're going to work with, your wood pieces, everything's going to go over the top of this center. So you really don't have to worry about that area right there. Okay, I think I got that side covered pretty well. And if you like, I'm using more of the taupey and the brown tones. I tend to like, when I do cross stitch pieces, I like to use like the taupe colors and the mushroom colors. So that's why I think I'm going to go with the colors that I am for the background of the cabinet and the colors that I chose. But you can use, if you like more of the gray tones, you can pick a combination of those colors as well. And I'm not worrying too much about getting in the little sides, because as the brush kind of goes over everything, it kind of does get into the sides of the wood pieces. So I'm not worried too much about that. I am just dry brushing over the top. I'm still pouncing up and down. You don't want to kind of brush it. That will, unless you like that look, you can always do that look as well. The whole point is just kind of grunge it up, make it look distressed. So the more paint you can add in the different colors, that's what gives it that look. But you always want to pounce off any excess paint onto your plate that you're working on, or whatever palette you have out for your paint. You don't want to have a lot of paint in this brush. Alrighty, I think I got that to where I like it. And these are going to have, you don't have to worry about the outside edges, because those are going to have the overlays from the cabinet pieces. So you don't have to worry about those sides or around the edges. Okay, so there you have that piece. I think I missed a spot right in here. So just keep adding paint till you get it to where you like it. And I think that looks pretty good for me. Okay, if you want to see what it looks like over the top of this to make sure you have the look that you want, you can do that. See, so my wood is showing through from the back. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set these to a side, and then I'm going to show you how I did these pieces. Now, I don't want any of the dark wood in there, so I have the dark paint in this. You can wash it out and then dry it off and use it again. I use them all the time, over and over again. But I only want to use the lighter colors for the other pieces of the cabinet. This is the colors I'm using here. So I used the white, the oyster white, and the burlap. I used these two colors, or these three colors. So that's what I'm going to be using to dip into. So I'm going to use a different paintbrush that doesn't have that dark color on it. So I already have some oyster white poured out. I'm going to get a little bit more burlap into a new spot here, and some white just in case I need it. Okay, and then I'm going to dip into the paint just a little bit. Probably the white and the oyster white. The oyster white I'm going to blend that off. You can even blend it off onto your paper on your work surface if you have that. And then what you're going to do is you're basically going to dry brush. You're going to take your brush and you're going to go back and forth like this. And it kind of gives a wood grain effect. So you want your brush to be pretty dry. You're not going to want to have too much paint on there, otherwise you're just going to cover up your whole entire surface. So you just kind of dry brush, and probably with this light color, I don't know how well you can see it on here because it's such a light color. So that's when I go back in and I get a little bit of the burlap, and I'm going to brush that one in too, and I just kind of go back and forth. So whatever way you want your wood grain to go, I of course want my wood grain to go sideways. That's the way you're going to want to do it. You can get more of a linen effect if you're going both directions. And it kind of gives that effect. But for this, since it's my wood cabinet, I'm just going to do it this way. And you just keep blending it back and forth, dry brushing it on, until you get it to where you like it. Now go the other way so I can get toward the end, or the edge, and blend some more on. And like I said, less is more, so you can always add more to it. If you don't like it, you can always repaint over it and try again. This technique though is very forgiving if you're not a good base painter. Like a lot of people say they don't like how they base coat paint, and this, you know, you're grunging it up, you're trying to make it look old. So if your painting is a little imperfect, it's completely okay. So I have that piece done. Hopefully you can see that in the video there. Okay, and so I'm gonna go, that's the base piece. I already did the top piece. These are your drawer fronts. So of course you want to do these too. Just dipping into different colors here. And if you wanted some darker color in there, you could add in some of that raw umber color if you wanted to. I'm kind of just trying to put on the light color first and then blend a little bit of the darker color back in, the burlap, dry brushing it like so. Okay, I'm going to go through all the pieces, just trying to get some of that distressing color on there. Okay, so there's those two. Now here is the, I guess I got a little bit of paint splatter on my frame there, but it's not going to matter because we're just distressing everything. So I'm going to do these now. I'm going to go around the frame. Now these I'm going to go up and down on the sides because that's the way the wood grain would naturally go on the frames here. I'm going to put some of the light color in, the ivory. And if you cover up your plate too much and you need, you know, you can get a new plate. So you have more space to blend the colors together. And if you get it heavier, like I got a little heavy in that area right there, it's okay. We're also going to sand this when we get all done. So you can sand a lot of that off if you want, if you don't like an area that's not too perfect for you or not what you're liking. You can add in some sanding. Okay, so I have that one done. You can see that there. Okay, and you don't want to forget your, this is your, the base. I went ahead and I glued the larger pegs to the base. This larger one is the base and then the bottom base, and then you're going to have a top base that's going to layer over the top when we go to put it together. So you're also going to want to do these two. Actually, I just realized that's going to be covered up. So you didn't have to do it. See, because that's going to be covered up like that. But I do want to go around that, make sure that the outside, the little edges are covered. So practice, right? Okay, now let's do this one. This one is going to show, so you're going to want to definitely do this one. So there's that, and don't forget, you're going to want to do all of your pieces. So even like this one here, this goes on the bottom, edge. It's going to make the base of the bottom of your cabinet. All right, and last, you don't want to forget your little drawer pieces here. I don't know what you call these. They look like little file covers. Just brush them on. And you even want to do your little knobs, because you don't want your knobs to be so white, but just grunge some paint on there. Here and there, just kind of dry brush some color on. A little trick to painting these, you can stick them on the edge of a paintbrush like that, and you can paint them that way instead of holding them in your hand. Kind of a fun little technique. So, okay, so I have all of my pieces painted now. When I distress, I just use 150 grit sandpaper like this. I use the sheets, and I just cut them in, the larger sheets like this, and I cut them into strips. You can use sanding blocks if you'd like, but this is what I use. I find it easy to use, and typically I will do this over a trash can because of all the dust that it makes, or sand outside if you have that ability to do so, because it does make quite a bit of a mess with all the dust. But for the video here, I am just going to go ahead and start sanding away. So this should be dry enough. I don't know if our background is dry. Let me see. The paint dries pretty quickly. Oh yeah, that's all dry. So let me do this first. So I'm going to just, and if you want a heavier distressing, you can use a heavier grit sandpaper. It just depends upon what you like. And I just start sanding, rubbing on the sides, and rubbing over the whole piece. And I stay going the same direction. Meaning I'm sanding up and down. So I'm going to continue to sand up and down. I'm not going to go this way with it. Okay, let me brush this off into the trash here. Okay, so here's this one. And like I said, you can sand it as heavy as you want. Brush it off. You can either use a paper towel, you can use a rag to get all the dust off. Okay, we'll set that one aside, and then I'm going to sand the chicken wire here. I'm just kind of going over the top here and there. You don't have to get in every little spot. I'm just kind of going over the top. Sometimes on a bigger piece, I will go through a couple pieces of sandpaper. So if your sandpaper gets a little too, I don't know if you can see where the paint's all gummed up right there. I'll switch it. That's why I fold it up, because you can use the inner part. You can unfold it and use the inner part. Okay, so let's see how this looks. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sand all the remaining pieces. Okay, and as you can see, that's one of the little door frames. I can see it up close, hopefully. Okay, I think I am all done. I am going to pause the video for a second so I can clean up my workspace here just a little bit and not have all this dust about. So I will be right back. All right, now that I have my work surface all cleaned off a little bit so we can put this cabinet together. You have some spacers in your kit. They look like this. There's 4 of them. You are going to glue those 2 pieces together so that it will make a spacer for the drawer so that you can insert little trinkets or treasures into the drawer if you want to. You can also just use the drawer fronts flat if you don't want to put anything in it. Okay, so I already glued these together, and I'm going to glue the faces onto the front here. I use this Tight Bond Quick and Thick. It sets up pretty quickly, so I like that. So it works pretty good. So I'm just going to put a little bit on there, just like that. And I like to have a paper towel handy so that if anything squirts out the sides, I can wipe it off. So I'm just going to use my paper towel here that I have. Because you don't want any glue seeping out the sides of the wood. It does dry clear though, so I do like that it dries clear, and I don't have to worry about it showing. Okay, make sure you got it all lined up. I like to usually stand these drawers up to make sure that they're all lined and standing. We'll do the second one. The cabinet you need to put together kind of in stages so that you get the pieces set up and dry a little bit before you go on to the next section. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside. Let those set up a little bit. Oh, or let's glue on the front of the faces here, the little tabs. If you plan to, you can make little tabs or little tags that say Merry Christmas or whatever holiday it is, Thanksgiving, you can put grateful or blessed. And these tabs have a little spacer on them as well. These little half pieces, you can glue those to the back of the tab. And that way it'll make a little spacer so that you can put a phrase or anything you want inside the tab. Now you can use the inside lining here, you can take a pencil and draw onto a piece of paper. I printed my tags off on the computer, just on a piece of paper, on a thicker piece of paper on the computer, and then used the tab to draw a line around it, and then I cut it out with my scissors. Okay, and so then you're going to glue the tabbed piece onto your piece of wood. Okay, let me make sure it's in the middle. Okay, just like that. Let me do the other one. Oh, where's my, here it is. But if you don't plan to put papers on the inside, you can just glue the frame directly to your drawer. But it also adds some dimension to the overall piece using the spacers as well. But it's all in how you like it. Okay, now I'll put this one on. Once you put the wood on, give it a good press so that it'll stick well. You line these up, make sure they're kind of in the same place on both drawers. I kind of use my fingers for spacing. Okay, those look good. So I'm going to set those aside. And then I think I'll move on to the base. Okay, so this is your main bottom base. This piece here is going to get glued to the underneath side of this. Now, when you're painting these, you want to be sure that you're not getting a lot of paint into these little slots here, because if you do, then these tabs aren't going to fit in there. So you see how I did not paint the wood on the tabs right there, so I could fit it into the grooves here. There is a little bit of wiggle room with them, but if you find they don't fit, you can take a precision file, you know, a small file like these that you can get at the hardware store, and you can sand the slots with this precision file to make it, to get the paint out, or just to help it fit a little bit better. Sometimes the wood swells due to weather conditions too. But another thing that I want to mention is there is a right side and a wrong side to laser cut wood, because as the laser goes through the wood, that the section gets smaller. So it does fit better going one way than the other way. And a lot of times you can tell which is the bottom side. There's a little bit of burned edge around the top sides, but the bottom side usually has little pieces like this a lot of times, little burn marks from the bottom of the laser where it hits back onto the wood. The laser shoots a beam and it hits onto the back of the wood. So you can tell that way as well. But if you're finding that your piece really doesn't fit, flip the piece over and try it from the other side. Okay, so like this piece, if I was gonna put this into here and I couldn't get it to fit like that, flip it over and go to this side. See, so like this side, I'm having a really hard time trying to fit it in there. It doesn't fit that well. So most likely I have it on the wrong side and it fits much better going that way. So that's just a tip on any of the wood pieces that we do that have to fit together. There is a right side and a wrong side of the wood. Okay, so let's glue this piece in. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the little tabs here, the corner of the tabs. And then I'll run a little bead down the middle here. Okay, and like I said, this gets glued. Now, well, I was going to say, you have to, this piece doesn't matter, but sometimes it matters which side you glue it to. So as far as the front and the back goes, and I'll show you that with the other piece in just a minute. So I do have a little bit of glue seeping out there. I'm just going to wipe it off. Okay, like that. And I'm thinking I'm going to take a little piece of sandpaper to the side of this right here. Okay, I just didn't like the way that one little area was distressed right there, so add a little bit more. So now that I glued that piece on, I'm going to let that set up for a few minutes. And this is the base piece that I'm talking about. So you see how these slots are not in the middle of the board. You have more room on the front side. That's the front, the area with more spacing. Okay, so that, and then these are going to get covered up. So you want to make sure that this is the front, and the section with the larger spacing is also toward the front. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue this down while I have it out. And because this piece is so large, you might have to hold it for just a second to help it set up. I'm going to squeeze that on there. You can also use tiny clamps if you want, if you need to hold something together to help it stick better. Let me see. I use little clamps like these. I got at the dollar store, and you can just, you know, clamp that on like that to hold it in place if you need to. But typically you don't. This glue sets up pretty quickly that you really don't need to. But if you ever find yourself in need, these work great. So I'm going to set that aside. Okay, and then as far as the background piece goes, so the background piece, get this out of the way. Okay, so I like to put on the top first and then the bottom. So I'm going to glue these two sections on, get them all lined up before I attach the middle section. There is a slight bit of spacing between the sections, kind of just like a cabinet would when the, you know, between the doors, there's just a slight bit of spacing. So I left a little bit of spacing on the actual cabinet. Okay, so I'm going to press this on here, and I want to be sure that it's all lined up on the very top up here. You're going to want to make sure all the pieces align and the sides, and you want to make sure that as it's drying that it doesn't shift at all on you. That's why this glue is kind of nice, because it does dry, it does set up pretty quickly. So you don't have to worry about the pieces shifting too much. Okay, and now I'm going to glue down the bottom piece. Waiting for my glue to come down to the bottom of the bottle there. Okay, and glue this one on. Now this is a good time before this actually sets up too much. Get my drawers out of the way. I'll put this up so you can see it in the video. So I'm going to glue this down, and then now is a good time to fit it into the base here. You can even add this to the bottom of the cabinet before you put on this piece. So I'm going to put some glue on the tabs again. But if there's any, if you need to adjust that base piece at all because there's spacing, that's why I would say it's a good time to put it into the base in case you need to adjust anything. Okay, and I'm going to slide it into those slots of the base, give it a good press down. And so now you can see that this base piece is nice and flush with the bottom base. I should say this lower piece, not base piece. It's going to be flush with this, so you can see it there. Now make sure as you're doing all this that your top section has not moved at all, which mine hasn't. It's still good. Make sure this is good from side to side. Okay. All right, now normally you want this to stay laying flat as you glue the rest of these together, which since I have it on the base, it's not laying flat right here. So I'm just going to stick something underneath it so that I can do the rest of it. Otherwise I'd leave it hanging off my table, but I'm afraid it won't show in the video. Okay, other than that, nope, I think I'm going to move this completely out of the way, change my mind, and I'm going to glue these on. Now, as you can tell, these are up, they're set a little bit higher than the bottom. They're just offset. So make sure that when you glue it on, that these are toward the top. You want more space toward the bottom. And your frames, kind of fit them on so if you have a favorite way to lay them, like some of your wood distressing, maybe you don't like a little section of it, or maybe you want this heavier section toward the bottom. So give it a look over and see how you like it. And then you're going to glue these frames on to the background piece. Okay, I can get my glue to go down again. I just hate that. Guess it's about time to refill the bottle maybe. Okay, just make a bead going all the way around like so. And then you'll get the one side stuck on. Again, and this one I don't press down too hard because I want to get the other side on before I actually press it all together and aligned properly before I want it to set up. Just in case I need to make any last minute changes or last minute alignments, that sort of thing. Okay, so now I'm going to press them down. Give it a good press. Make sure they're aligned on the sides. You know, nothing's hanging over or crooked. And as you do that, it might shift a little. Just shift it back. And then once you get it all set, you can leave it for just a few minutes to set up and make sure it's all stuck and not going to move before you glue it to your cabinet. Okay? And now these two, there's two circles in your kit. These are for, you have two options. So I designed this for Priscilla's Sassy strippers that go on each panel here. And so they set directly on these two pieces right here. So you can also, and then the little knobs here, they go right in the center like that. But you can also use this for a larger piece. So if that's the case, then let me grab one of these boards here, just as an example. So say you have a larger cross stitch piece. Well, that can go directly in the center here. Of course, you're going to want the board larger than that to cover up your spacing here. But you can leave the knobs off. You can add the knobs. Maybe you want to add them to your drawers here like that. So you can use these as a spacer in the center of these so that now your board is going to sit flush when you glue it on. Okay, so just some options for you to think about. Now, if you want to use this as a change out piece, you can use the thick magnets. They're the rare earth magnets like these that you can actually glue to this and then use it on, it'll actually go through the back side of your cabinet so that you can change out your pieces how you want. So those are some options for you to think about as you're assembling your cabinet. You know, maybe you want to tack these on really lightly with maybe some tape or something so that you can remove them later in case you want to do a larger piece at a later date, you know. So there's always options, so you want to think about that as you're putting your cabinet together. So now that I've chatted away here, I think this is set up enough that I can add it to the back of my cabinet. So let's get that. Let's put this like this. And like I said, so as you can see it's not complete, there's just a little tiny bit of spacing on the top and bottom, and this will move. This, you can shift it just a little bit. It's not completely super tight to fit it in there. So that's what that's where that's going to go. And so I'm going to go all the way around the outside edges. I don't worry too much about all the little wire, the chicken wire parts in the center. That's not too much of a big deal to glue every little part down. So I'll go around the outside edge. And down the center, and then I'll put glue on this part too. That way the center will be locked down tight. There we go. Okay, so let's flip this over. And like I said, make sure your these middle sections, make sure the top, you have more at the bottom, more spacing at the bottom than at the top. Okay? All right. So make sure that's nice and even. Like I said, if you need to hold it there for a few minutes or use some clamps to hold it down and hold it in place for you, you can do that. Let me make sure the top's okay. What do you think? Pretty, huh? don't like your cabinet as distressed as this, you can distress it as much as you want. You can, like I said, you can just spray paint the whole entire thing and call it done. Spray painting is really quick and easy. I've been trying to get a video up on how to spray paint because I think a lot of people are intimidated by it, but it really is quick and easy. So, all right. So I think I've got this all lined up and I think it's set pretty good. So now you're going to want to glue your drawer fronts on. So center them in your cabinet where they need to go on each. So I should say center them on each side of your cabinet where they need to go. And we're going to glue these down. So you're only going to want to glue this part, that the spacer part. And then you can place seasonal foliage in the drawers. You can use like some fall leaves for fall. You can put Christmas greenery in for Christmas. And then you can use, if you want to add little wood trinkets, you can use some of our tiny shapes. They work really well. I'm designing some specifically for the drawers, but some of the other ones that we already have definitely work. I've used the fall tiny shapes. They work well in here. And you can dress it up however you like. There's so many different options for it. I think this piece is just so very versatile for so many different size stitches. And even I'm hoping I can get something in the works for the crafters as well, so that they can enjoy the pieces too. They can enjoy the piece too. So there we go. Now I have this sitting on this. So it's I want to make sure that this is, you want to make sure that this is flat. So if you already have your base on, you want to make sure that you just hang it off your desk so that it is laying flat, which I'm going to do that. So you probably lost this in the video just now, but I want to make sure that these are on straight. I don't want to let it set up and not be straight. So I'm going to do this really quickly here. Oh, and then one last thing, we are going to glue our little finial knobs, our little pegs here. Now, you can put them high, you can put them in the middle, wherever you like them. You can put them a little lower. I think I put them right there. I'm going to hold it up. I did. I put them kind of in the middle of this one little frame here. I used the chicken wire as a guide. Okay, let me make sure they're straight. Even. Alrighty, so now I have my cabinet all finished. Make sure those drawers are straight. So there you have it. The background looks good against the chicken wire, and it's darker so that you have that shadowing going on. And as you can see the little spacing right here in the slots. Okay, so that's all, that's what there is to doing that. And I thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, you can add a comment in the box below and I will get back to you, or you can email me at info@paisleysandpolkadots.com and I can respond to you there. And please like this video, share it with your friends, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.